Is Forza Motorsport 8 coming out on the Xbox One? How big is the Xbox and Bethesda showcase in June going to be? PlayStation is looking to hire for inorganic growth, and the chip shortage is seemingly going to last into 2024. So Forza Motorsport 8 is supposed to be the next just huge simulation racing game that is going to be coming out from Turn 10 Studios, an exclusive Xbox title, and it is the direct competitor to Gran Turismo 7, which, as we know, has been out now for a couple of months. And when it first got released, it really had a terrible release in terms of the reviews not representing everything that was going on with the game, with the microtransactions being held back. But people are still really purchasing Gran Turismo 7 a lot, as it was the second best-selling game, I believe, during March for MPD. And even with all of the issues with Gran Turismo 7, people saying it doesn't have great graphics, looking like an older game, it is still doing very well. So there is a big place for Forza Motorsport 8 to come in and capitalize on the simulation racing genre and just kind of blow Gran Turismo 7 out of the water. As I said, that's, to me, its direct competitor. Now, one of the big draws to Forza Motorsport 8 is the fact that they have announced this game only so far for the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X. We're getting through 2022, and we know that they were going to continue to support the Xbox One through 2022. But after 2022, I think it's really time to leave the Xbox One behind in terms of releasing native games on it. I mean, it's great to continue to support it through the cloud with Xbox Cloud Gaming, something that Xbox has developed and invested in. And I think it's a very smart move to be able to keep that avenue of accessing their games open through the cloud if you don't have an Xbox Series X or S yet. But with a game like Forza Motorsport 8, it'll literally be probably one of the best graphical showcases to date. I mean, we saw how good Forza Horizon 5 looked, and that was a cross-generation title. So the Forza series definitely has the ability to still look great if it's cross-gen. But I think people are now ready to just get rid of the last gen consoles and focus on getting the best possible performance and graphics out of the Series X and the Series S. Now, there is some news here regarding Forza Motorsport 8 in terms of it potentially still being on the Xbox One, as there were some images that came out on the subreddit Gaming Leaks and Rumors that have been verified by the moderators, and they were images of Forza Motorsport 8 during the technical tests running on the Xbox One. It says here if authentic, which, I mean, they say just above that they have been authenticated by the moderators of the subreddit. It's possible the images originated from one of the closed test developer Turn 10 has held for the racing installment. It's possible the last gen version may have been included only as part of this testing, since Turn 10 claimed it was only providing parts of the new game. And for a lot of people, this is concerning because Turn 10 has said that this next game is going to have a huge generational leap, which I think it needs to have, and I think what people want to see. Racing games, one of the biggest things for racing games is that graphical showcase, and that's something that isn't for every style of genre out there. I mean, some games like Elden Ring, which don't have the best graphics in the world but just are incredible RPGs in every other way in terms of the gameplay, the world building, and just overall as a video game, it's incredible. It doesn't need to have those mind-blowing graphics, but racing games, I think, have to have really, really good graphics to add to the overall immersion. It almost has to be lifelike, especially if you're releasing a brand new one on the newest hardware out there. And last summer, the creative director of Forza Motorsport 8, Chris Isaki, talked about Turn 10 and talked about Forza Motorsport 8 and how they are going to be revamping and deepening everything with the game in terms of the physics and the core gameplay, and it sounded really cool. He says here, to put the physics work into perspective for everyone, the changes we've made for Forza Motorsport 7 till now is more than the changes that we've made from Forza Motorsport 4 through 7. So it's basically a huge generational leap coming to the game. And a lot of this has to do with the tire collision model, as with the older Forza Motorsport games, there was a single point of contact with the track surface on the tire, and it was refreshed at about 60 cycles per second or 60 hertz. With this new model, they say there's 8 points of contact with the track service and runs at 360 titles per second or 360 hertz. And Isaki specifically says, so if you're doing the math there, it's a 48 times fidelity jump in a single tire collision itself. So there's just a huge amount of work there that has just really paid off for us. So this could all be for naught in terms of the game running on the Xbox One with this image. It may literally just be for that test as they are just shipping out parts of the games to be tested, not the entire thing. This game, we don't even have a release date for it yet. It was apparently coming out in 2022. Those are some of the rumors circulating around. Hopefully we'll see more about it at the Xbox and Bethesda game showcase in June. But I think that for the hype of it, so it doesn't get reduced a little bit, I think that this game needs to be a next gen, an Xbox Series X and S game only, and then accessible through the Xbox One on Xbox Cloud Gaming. Now, speaking of the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase, this rumor is very exciting if true. Obviously, I mean, take it with a grain of salt because it hasn't been confirmed, but it says here virtually every Xbox studio has submitted content for June Games Showcase. And this comes via Jess Corden on the Xbox 2 podcast, just saying, I did hear through the grapevine not that long ago, almost virtually every studio has submitted something for the show. Almost all of them submitted something for the show, and some studios submitted multiple things. That's where things get cut though. And just referring to the fact that, I mean, Xbox has so many studios now, there are so many games in the works that I think this showcase is going to be really big to bring people up to date as to where they are. And some of the games that are going to be coming out in the next year or so, we need to see some gameplay, some more information on these games, just so people know that they're still being worked on, they're still well in development, especially with some of the news that has been coming out over the last year with studios like The Initiative and studios like Undead Labs, with those reports that came out. Not that that means these games are in trouble or they're not far enough in development to be able to come out in a reasonable amount of time, but obviously with that negative news out there, this showcase is going to be huge to kind of offset that and just kind of calm people down who are still worried about how Xbox is handling their studios. There's so much stuff to be shown, so many game studios, and so much content that Xbox can show off at this showcase, but obviously they only have like an hour and a half to do this. They're going to have to cut some stuff. They're not going to be able to go into a deep dive of everything. You think of a game like Starfield coming out in November, that's probably going to be the main showcase game where they're going to give us a lot more information as to what we can expect. Remember when they did with like Fallout 4, where they showed Fallout 4 at 83 and then it came out in the holiday season, how big that was. I think that's going to be very similar when it comes to Starfield, but so many other games people want to see. Hellblade 2, they want to see Redfall. We know that one's supposed to be coming out as well. Forza Motorsport 8, which we just talked about, that would be great to show off as the next big premier simulation racing game. And then there's Avowed and the other stuff that Obsidian is working on with that Pentiment game. So many things that can be shown off. And if every studio submits something, Xbox is going to have to pick through what are the most important things to be shown off at the event on June 12th. So last week we talked about how Xbox was hiring a new position to handle mergers and acquisitions to seek further opportunities in order to continue to grow the Xbox portfolio. And it seems like now PlayStation is doing the same thing. So there's a new job that has been posted for the Director of Corporate Development. It's a listing that says Sony Interactive Entertainment seeks a highly qualified Director of Corporate Development. SIE's corporate development team works closely with SIE's management team and is responsible for identifying inorganic growth opportunities through acquisitions, investments, or joint ventures. The team sources, evaluates, and completes transactions that are aligned with SIE's strategic priorities and drives significant long-term value for the company. The foundational work of the team involves developing market insights through strong internal and external relationships to identify attractive mergers and acquisitions and investment opportunities. Now, some of the things that you're going to need to qualify for this job, one of the main things is proven track record of leading all parts of the end-to-end merger and acquisition process for both large and small transactions, including acquisitions, joint ventures, and investments. So this is interesting for a couple of reasons. I think the main one here is we've seen PlayStation kind of change their overall view as to how they want to grow the PlayStation department. Firstly, they were saying that they were focusing on the organic growth of their studios with just building what they currently have into stronger studios to continue to put up great content. And then we slowly started to see them have more and more acquisitions, smaller acquisitions with studios that worked with PlayStation in the past. They already had a relationship. And then we saw something like the Haven Studios, which had absolutely no relationship. They hadn't built the game for PlayStation yet. They were just starting, but hadn't proven themselves. And then we saw them get into an even bigger acquisition, which was with Bungie. And now they're hiring for a manager to look at this, to manage all of this stuff, big and small acquisitions, to continue to try to grow their portfolio. And I think it's just the time of the gaming world that we're in the sense that mergers and acquisitions are happening all the time now. Every company is trying to jostle for the best position for the future, which I think is going to be subscription. It's going to be cloud gaming. We even saw yesterday with the Embracer Group purchasing the Western studios of Square Enix, and I guess they're going in a sort of a different path. I don't know if they're going to be fully into the cloud and fully into the subscription, but they could be. They could turn the entire Embracer Group into a subscription model to try to counter Xbox Game Pass with all the studios they have. You see PlayStation with their PlayStation Plus tier remodeling. All of this stuff is playing out, and it's been a very interesting generation so far because of it. And now PlayStation is making sure that they're going to have a entire team, entire department, and a manager dedicated to identifying inorganic growth. And it specifically says inorganic, which is opposite of what they had previously said. And all this is to say that the acquisitions are not over. Will Xbox make another acquisition? What is going to be the next acquisition for PlayStation? Will Embracer Group do another thing in the next couple of months or so to continue to build their portfolio? What is Tencent going to do? Because you know they're always looking. So this is going to be happening all generation. And for Xbox specifically, I don't think we will see anything until after the Activision Blizzard deal is closed. So one of the biggest issues this generation of consoles has simply just been the chip shortages. The ability to get consoles out to consumers has been harder and harder and slower, which definitely has had an effect on the console sales. Although both of these consoles are selling extremely well, they probably could be selling more if it wasn't for the chip shortage. We've seen this completely play out over the first quarter of 2022 with the Xbox outselling the PlayStation 5. One of the big reasons is because they're able to get more consoles out to the consumers. Now, the chip shortage was supposedly supposed to end in 2023, and it looks like this now may be pushed to 2024 via the CEO of Intel. So Pat Gelsinger had previously told CNBC that they expected all of these production issues for the chip shortages for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, that it wouldn't end until 2023. Recently had another interview with CNBC and now expects the chip shortage to last into 2024. And the Intel CEO says that the reason it's going to be pushed into 2024 in terms of the chip shortage ending is that now there are shortages for the actual manufacturing tools. They aren't readily available, specifically saying that's part of the reason that we believe the overall semiconductor shortage will now drift into 2024 from our earlier estimates in 2023, just because the shortages have now hit equipment and some of those factory ramps will be more challenged. So interesting, it's going to continue through 2023, potentially into 2024, as he says. And how is this going to affect the overall console sales? I mean, if this chip shortage continues for another couple of years, we're going to potentially be halfway through this generation, depending on how long it lasts, and it could have an overall major effect on the sales of these consoles, especially if we are continuing to see what we're seeing now, where Xbox has that chip priority. They're going to be able to push out more consoles to the consumer, whereas PlayStation doesn't, and they are solely focused on pushing out their consoles in order to get people into PlayStation Network to access their content. Xbox doesn't have to worry about that. So I think at the end of the day, this chip shortage stuff, it's bad for both, but it severely affects PlayStation much more than it affects Xbox. And the longer it lasts, you may start to see PlayStation move faster in their transition to things like what we're seeing with updating the PlayStation Plus tiers and then putting more games on PC, maybe even jump further into cloud gaming and try to get their games accessible across more devices other than console and PC. That's it for me, guys. Let me know your thoughts on Forza Motorsport 8, the June Xbox and Bethesda showcase, the chip shortages going into 2024, and PlayStation hiring for inorganic growth. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here, you liked what you saw, consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.